This is Rapid Done right here on Rapid TV. My name is Martha Alu.
And of course, my name is Victor. Okay, good morning and welcome to the big conversation. And thanks to Victor Ejema, I believe he's been here to give us sporting updates and of course take you around the world of sports. Yeah, welcome.
Welcome. This is the 9 o'clock hour, and basically at 9 o'clock we get on to the big conversation right here. Now, there's been lots and lots of conversations we had this morning, just a run through of some of those conversations, talking about, you know, the economic system and the timelines that the president has now given to the Minister of Finance. We also did a bit of story around the security situation right here in Nigeria that has taken quite a drastic turn. We talked about how, you know, many communities and many societies are being bullied into living the lives that, you know, they didn't plan out for themselves. And then speaking about bullying, when we talk about that, you know, we oftentimes make the mistake of thinking that it only happens in one sector or another. But whatever it is that happen within these communities is bullying them to leave their communities and getting into the streets. We said it yesterday that communities, people within communities here in the FCT are leaving their homes and getting into other communities because of, you know, a certain threat by these terrorists and bandits. But yes, when we talk about bullying, it is often dismissed as a normal part of growing up, a rite of passage. But for many young people, it is a daily experience of fear, of humiliation, and silence. Globally, 1 in 3 students experience bullying. This is according to reports by UNESCO. And in Nigeria, studies suggest that over 60 to 70% of students have experienced some form of bullying. Most cases go unreported due to either fear of retaliation, normalization is just play, lack of reporting system. A recent case here in Nigeria is a certain school has brought back this issue into focus, not just as an isolated incident, but as a reflection of a deeper problem within our institutions. And when we say institutions this time around, we're not just limiting it to that which we talk about when in relation to security. We're also talking about institutions, school institutions. And today we are asking important but necessary questions. Where do we draw the line between discipline and abuse? What precautions exist for students? And are our schools truly safe spaces or just controlled environments where harm is normalized? And of course, we say harm is normalized because the incident which I'm drawing into focus right now is that of a school, a medium school, how it's being called. And a certain video is circulating all over social media about a certain boy who was being brutalized or abused, as the case may be. And today, to help us better understand this conversation, we have Mrs. Aderemi Emmanuel-Oki. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. She's a child psychologist and a parenting coach, and she'll be helping us break down, you know, the conversation centered around bullying. Now, let's get into the crux of the matter. But first of all, let's break down and understand certain terminologies. And we're starting off with what bullying is. What is bullying?
Okay, bullying is when an individual, it could be a student, it could be anybody, when you want to exert dominance on other people through the use of force. It could be by flogging, by dragging, pinching, for instance, for those students, pupils in their formative years. They do a lot of bullying through scratching themselves, pinching and all that. So it's actually just to intimidate other people that you feel you have power over.
Wow. And if you look at that as well, it doesn't just start in a day. What are some of the factors that makes a person a bully? I mean, how does a person grow into being a bully?
Okay, now, like I'm a parenting coach, and the enormous responsibility we're entrusted with as parents cannot be overemphasized here. Okay. Most of the time, those children, they are exposed to some form of bullying from home. You know, I tell parents, don't be bothered about the fact that when you talk at times, when you are exasperated by your children's misdemeanor, they are not listening to you and all that. Be bothered about the fact that they are watching you.
All right.
And they are going to replicate everything they see. You know, is a behavioral pattern. They see you, they see play out in the house, in the home. that they will replicate outside there.
All right.
And
Before we get onto that,
Yeah.
just hold that thought. Let's go out on a very quick break, and when we get back, we'll keep breaking down these terminologies. Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. We're still into the conversation centered around bullying, and we have Ms. Aderemi Emmanuel-Oki helping us talk about how bullying starts off. I remember that's the last question that was asked. Yeah. How does this start off in children?
Okay, Ashi.
Yeah,
yes,
okay. So, like I said, they are exposed to a kind of form of bullying in the home. Now, if a child sees the way the parents behave to other people, especially people who are seemingly unassuming and people who cannot do anything for them, you understand what I mean in context, and they see the way you do to them, you behave to them, the way you relate with them, they will pick it up and they will replicate that.
So it's more of a learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior. Yes, bullying, more often than not, bullying is a learned behavior. And parents, now I'm going to talk a little about family dynamics and all that.
Okay.
When you don't avail your children the opportunity to, you don't give them the leeway to talk about their feelings, their emotions. You don't validate their emotions. They bottle up pent-up emotions. There will be a time that they want to erupt, and it becomes a bit volatile, and they feel, okay, since I'm not heard at home, since I'm neglected at home, the best thing for me to do in school is to express myself whichever way. There are no constraints here, and then parents are not even helping. When a child does something wrong in school, and the child is reported, parents will go to school and start berating educators. You know, it's very wrong on all forms, but that's what is prevalent in most of the private schools. I'm not saying every private school. I'm not doing overgeneralization now, but that's what happens. And so the child feels, I'm invincible, I'm unconquerable, I can do whatever I want and get away with it, because there is a backing of an adult, somebody you look up to as your parents. They are your first role models, by the way, and they are backing you up on wrongdoings. They continue to do it, and it's, you know, it spirals out of control. And that's it.
I like the fact that you made mention of schools and, you know, some of these intricacies and how the school also promotes that. Now, we'll be calling in Mrs. Juliet Osarugue, and she is the director of Milestone Academy. She's joining us virtually for this conversation, just so that we can have a balanced perspective. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
All right. I believe that you have been part of the conversation since we started.
Yes.
Yes. Our guest here.
Yes.
Our guest here just talked about schools and how, you know, when children do wrong in schools and are reported to their parents or are being punished, the parents come back to school to berate educators and what have you. Let's talk about bullying from your perspective as a director of an academy.
Okay, so bullying is intentional and is repeated. It's repeated. So for an action to be seen as bullying, it means it's a repeated action. Okay, it's not just children playing. And yes, the school has a role to play, but that's where we miss it. Not just the school, it's a combined effort. The school and the parents. So where parents miss it at first is thinking that the school is responsible for upbringing of children. No, yeah, we are partners. We are partners. So it's a lot. It's a lot the school is doing, and we will continue to do. Bully happens everywhere. Bully can happen anywhere, but we need to stop it because of its adverse effects it has on the victim and even those the bullies now in quotes. Yeah, so it's a good conversation this morning.
All right,
thank you.
We'll talk about some of those effects just in a moment, but you talked about the fact that the schools have been doing a lot to ensure that bullying is stopped. Take us through what are the exact things that the schools have been doing to ensure that bullying is stopped in schools.
Okay, so first, most schools, first of all, part of the criteria we are giving from the Ministry of Education is that every school must have an anti-bullying policy. Okay. So this policy ensures that it helps to remove that bullying thing. So we know when this thing happened, this is what will happen. So there are consequences, and not just the consequence part. Now there's a teaching part, there's a training part, there's a way, there's a whole lots of conversation. So first thing schools do, majority of schools in Nigeria, we have the anti-bullying policy. Okay. We have programs. In January, there's always anti-bullying week. And you see schools, if you go on the internet, you see schools, we have Odd Socks Day. Now, the Odd Socks program is to bring awareness about bullying. So those are some of the things. There's education. Then we have the pastoral department, which is another compulsory department in every school, especially secondary school, where we have counselors. We have psychologists who help to tend to children. Like my colleague in the studio said, we children are counseled. There's a psychologist in school that helps children where they can express themselves, they can express their emotions. And there's also a department now, currently, that is trending. We have the what's it called? The school safety. There's a name for it. There's a name we call it. I'll remember. Okay. There's child safety departments in most of the schools. So I think these are part of the things that schools have done, but no system is perfect.
Right.
There have been pitfalls, and I think that's where schools need to tighten up. Right now. Are we implementing these anti-bullying policies in schools?
All right. Ms. Juliet, I like the fact that you asked that question, whether or not anti-bullying policies are being implemented in school. Now, I can say to you firsthand that there's a system of favoritism that happens particularly in private institutions, where the students who have parents from a wealthy background are giving priority over students who seem not to have as much as those students have. And in fact, with the video we have in focus, in that same school, that's the same story that is playing out. And I'll give you an example, a very personal example. I have a niece who is in a school, and a parent demanded that because that niece of mine is doing well in school, she should be moved from that class where she is to the class where the woman's child is at. And that's because it's a politician's child, and that child was moved without the consent of the parent and without even the consent of the child. If you ask me, that's the bullying, but that's from the institution in itself. The institution has bullied that child, making the child, forcing the child into. So we have a lot, particularly private institutions, I would say, that encourage this, regardless of the policies and the framework that exist with the government and what have you. How are you as a director addressing this issue? And are these matters even raised at all in a forum that all private directors exist?
Okay, thank you so much. So you see, we are always concerned about the private sectors. You and I are Nigerians. If we go to the government schools, we will cry. We will cry. So, but let's leave that conversation. Now, coming to the private sector, I will tell you that schools are doing a lot. But are we doing enough? Maybe no. Can we do better? Yes, we can. There are various forms of abuse, and we need to look into it. We need to look into it. We need to do a lot. So schools need to know. First of all, they teach us about clarity of purpose. Why are we a school? A school is an organization or an institution where the total and the whole child is being bettered. So not just academics, we look into character, we look into morals, whereby these are the things that are even most important. Now, looking at our curriculums, in the preschool, they'll tell you that the most important things in the preschool are practical lives, they are sensorials, they are character, morals, values. So that is where we are missing it. We are missing the important things. So it's not about the status of the parents of the child. No, it's not about that. Now, I will always say, if your tuition is 10,000 naira, as long as everyone in that school can afford it, everyone should be treated equally. No child deserves to be bullied, whether physical, emotional, in any aspect. It's very wrong. So yes, proprietors, school directors, we talk about it. That's why, like I said, we do programs. There's no school, majority of the schools, we do anti-bully week. You see some schools, they take a walk, parents will join them. Now we need more parent involvement. Is the school doing enough? Like I said, we can do better. But what are the parents doing? Can we talk about it? What can we do?
When you talk about these activities, before we get
back
into
into the
Aderemi,
studio.
when you talk about these activities, are these national activities, or these activities are just activities that are being carried out in a specific region of the country? So we need to understand this as well.
Okay. So when we are planning our calendar in school, we check the UN calendar. So the UN calendar, most times they guide us. So we have these programs in the UN calendar. So it's based on the school if they want to bring in these programs into their organization. But because of prevalent issues, I think more schools are adopting it. They're adopting it, bringing in these programs where it's just schools go as far as bringing in counselors, bringing in psychologists in that particular week. In that particular week, yeah. So how can the government
that
help?
week?
Psychologists are not
No, are the
okay. Yeah, sorry.
schools in just certain regions, or these are schools in the entire nation? That's what one.
Is it what your institution adopted, or it's a general requirement?
Okay, it's not a general requirement. It's not a general requirement, but I see most schools doing it, like I said. I've not really looked into Benin. Edo State. I'm from Benin, so I know that school very well. So I've not really looked into the activity of recent, but I know schools in Benin that also does that. But in Abuja, I will tell you that majority of private schools we do it.
All right.
Yes.
Let's come back into the studio.
Go
Okay.
on.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. And let's go from your perspective now. We're talking about the psychological impact of bullying on these students, as the case may be. And we're not just limiting it to students now. We'll first look at the students, but we know that institutions also bully people. Institutions, workforce generally. There's that system where, that system where you make an observation and you get picked on, or you become the target because of observations that you have made, or because of corrections that you have pointed out. So at every level, we experience bullying. But what is the psychological impact of bullying on the bullied?
Okay. So I've been an educator for over 23 years, so I'm going to focus more on students. Okay. Now, when a child is bullied, the child's self-esteem is eroded. He or she feels unworthy, one, and it might become a recluse. It might decide to go into isolation, doesn't want to relate with other students, doesn't want to go to school, is not interested in classroom activities. Another thing is the child may even want to commit suicide. If the bullying persists for a long period of time, and there is no involvement of the educators, there is no intervention, so to speak, and the parents are even unaware. That's why I say no matter how much you are drowned in the vicissitudes of life as a parent, you must take time out to be in your child's life. You must replace the presence with your presence. Make sure you ask questions, no matter how busy you are every day. Maybe there is a stipulated time in the course of the week, maybe on Friday, weekends, you call your children or you call your child. And for those people that don't do school buses, when you go to pick your child, that's the time for you to ask questions. How did your day go? What was the high point of your day? What stood out for you? What did you do? And then we must inculcate kindness in our children, empathy. What did you do to help somebody today? Who helped you today? What are the lessons you learned? Especially when they're younger, they want to talk, they want to onboarding, they want to upload and just tell you everything they've gone through in the school. Because in school, your teacher will tell you, sit down, don't talk, don't do this. But their parents is their safety nest. So they want to talk, so that's an opportunity for you as parents to bond with them and to ask them questions so that you know what they are going through. Because when the pent-up emotions is there, that's when they start thinking, I'm unworthy, I don't think I want to go to school, I will not amount to anything. And the psychological effect is they will withdraw, definitely, and they may want to commit suicide. We've seen cases of children abroad, even in Nigeria, that have committed suicide because of bullying. So there are so many effects of that.
Now, still talking about parents, now we're talking to you from a place of being a psychologist right now, and of course, children. Now, many parents do not even know that their children are bullies, and they don't also know that their children are being bullied. Now, what are those signs that parents should watch out for first of all, to identify that their children are exhibiting, those signs of being bullies and also the signs of being bullied, at home.
So for a child that has been bullied, the first sign is the child withdraws.
Okay.
It goes silent. The activities, the day-to-day activities that the child has always been involved in or with, the child does not do it again. At home, he or she just wants to be in a room or buried behind the screen. They want to just be on their devices, and they don't want to talk to anybody because they are trying to understand why. Some of them don't even understand, especially the ones that are younger. Why should this happen to me? Yeah. And if you don't create that environment where your child, that ambience, where your child can express himself or herself, you're not doing the child any favor, because the child will keep to himself. And once your child tells you, I don't want to go to school, then you need to really go into the nitty-gritty of what has happened. You might need to call the teacher, the educator, or the school authority and ask. And it's very important. That's why most schools, government school, they hardly do it, but most private schools, if not all, they do open day. Yeah. So that's the opportunity for a parent to learn about your child, because most of our children are two-faced. Okay. Who they are at home is different from whom they are in school, because they want to be the good boy. They want to be in the good books of their parents. So they may not exhibit totally. They may not be in their full bloom of their character at home. Okay. So it's very important to, do that in school. So the first sign is they withdraw.
That's for the one that is being bullied.
The ones that are being bullied.
So how do you know someone who is a bully?
Who is a bully? The person is always defiant to authorities, to rules. They do it. If they start, they may want to pretend, but over time it will come out. You will know. If you are attentive to your child, you will know they are defiant. They don't want to observe rules and regulations. When you talk to them, they talk back at you, they roll eyes, they do so many things. There are so many signs to look out for. If you are sensitive as a parent and you look at them, you will get it.
All right. Yes. Let's get back to Miss Juliet. Are you with us?
Yes, please.
All right. Now, there's one trend I see that is different from what we had in institutions previously. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Very common saying. And you'd agree with me that previously, this system where, in fact, at some point when we grew up, we were so scared of our teachers because we knew that if you got away with what you were doing at home, you won't get away with it in school because the teacher points it out and the teacher punishes you for it. But I see many institutions, and it's not like I'm hammering on private institutions just to antagonize them, but because we see that they have now crowded the system. First, because of the failure of the public institution to provide the standard of education that a child needs. So we understand that you are doing a lot in that space at private as a private institution. However, we see that some woke policies, I call them woke policies, that are being introduced in the now recent school system contribute to a large extent to this culture of bullying. And I'll tell you one of it. Now, in schools, you are not allowed to punish a child. In most private institutions, you are not allowed to punish a child. They'll tell you when a child does something, you report them to their parents will deal with them. In fact, we have had videos online where students literally verbally abuse their teachers, but the hands of the teachers are tied because they cannot beat the students. If you beat the student, the child comes back, goes home, tell their parents, they come back and harass the teachers. In some cases, arrest the teacher. So you can see now that because we have moved away from that system under the guise of children are being bullied by their teachers in school, we have now gotten into a bigger problem where the students that you are protecting from the bullying of the teachers are now the bullies to their other students. Please help us address this case.
Okay, so corporal punishment has been dismissed in schools. Now, before it was done, a study was carried out. If we see, cases like this comes, if we are truthful to ourselves, once a while, it's not a normal thing. No. It's not a normal thing. Now, it was found out that students who that corporal punishment was really melted on, they end up being hard-hearted. They end up with different characters that are not good to the society. So that's why other means have been brought out. So it depends on the school. Now, like I said earlier, we should be clear about our purposes at school, as a school. We should be clear. Before it will go to this extent of the video trending, you will know that.
Do we still have you on the line?
Yes.
Oh no. I really needed her to address that because
issue.
it's such a big issue you see in schools these days. You know, they don't beat them at home, like they don't beat them in school.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should abuse the child. There's also a thin line between. Maybe we should address that before. Are you? Is she back? Do we still?
Okay,
Juliet?
can you hear me?
All right,
we
we can
can
hear
now.
you.
Go ahead.
Okay,
please, yeah.
so as I was saying, so we all have, schools have disciplinary policies. What do you do at each point? Okay, we've removed that corporal punishment. Remember, we are bringing in empathy. We are bringing in kindness. We can't do that when we treat people like animals. No, they are children. They are human beings. Okay, we treat them just the way they should be. But the problem comes when schools ignore basic science, when schools ignore so many things, which is not supposed to be. Now, I will say it anytime, any day. Corporal punishment is wrong. It is wrong. We want the children to learn. We want them to be good people, people with good hearts. You know, but will I say that that punishment per se has been completely eroded from the school? No. Each school, they have the way they do it. Some schools is just one person. Okay, you have to train your staff to the extent that you know that whatever they are doing, they correct in love. And you need to also carry the parents along. Yes, we have so many parents that are ill-mannered too. Yes, we know. But our basic responsibility is they are the children.
Please,
Yes, so those
Juliet, please, how do you correct the
yes,
children
please.
in love? Please just give us a practical example.
Exactly.
For instance, a child
Okay.
bullies another child, collects his meal,
Okay.
constantly collects the meal of a child, eats it, leaves the other child hungry, the child goes home, cannot speak to their parents, and you in school, you are aware. Please give me a practical example of how you correct that child in love.
Love.
Okay. So first thing, like I said, bullying is repeated action. When a child has done something to a child, collect his or her meal the first time, the second time, it shouldn't happen the third time. It shouldn't happen.
When he does?
By the second time, what? Okay, so if it does, what does the policy say? If the policy say we invite the parents, immediately that should be done. Then what do we do to the child? Should we isolate the child in a way that maybe he will not be close to the other children because he's an harm. He's going to impose harm on the other children. So everybody should be on alert. That child should already be on red alert. Does he need to speak to a counselor? The parent, there are some instances in school where I would tell the parent, this child needs to see a counselor. If the child does not see a counselor, this child cannot return back to school.
What is the place of the rod
So
in
it's
all of this? Forgive me.
no. It does not have to be the rod,
Hold
please.
on, forgive me, right? Forgive me. I grew up in a
Yeah.
very like typical traditional African
home.
system, right? And
Yeah.
I would not say that I was brutalized in school or brutalized by my parents. I would say for a fact that there was a place for the rod, there is a place for counseling, there's a place for correction. But when you tell me that a child is on red alert, and what you do is to call the child for counseling, a child that constantly, and I promise you, they might have called that child to other countless times, repeatedly exhibit that behavior. I do not agree that there's no point where a rod comes in there. But maybe your opinion might be different. But that's personally, that's what I think. Where is the place for a rod? Are you completely eradicating the rod from a system of correction for a child? Or we're now going all gentle parenting, we're only talking to these children, we're not bringing their attention to anything, we're not doing punishment. And remember, punishments don't necessarily need to be corporal. You know, there are also punishments that are not corporal. So are we taking out that element of punishment or discipline
that's the word.
and narrowing that discipline down to only speaking to that child? I told you how I grew up. I don't believe that talking is the problem. So, but maybe
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a difference between punishment and discipline.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a difference. So what is discipline? Discipline is, if you do this again, I will do this to you. And when the child does that, you do what you have said you will do. Yes, so that is discipline.
Discipline.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, you don't, according to Montessori, you don't punish a child for an offense you have not taught the child what to do. Now, I am talking from the perspective of as an educator who works with children 11 and below. Now,
Okay.
in the secondary school, it is totally different. Now, talking about corporal punishment, I've called a parent in once, twice. The parent can decide to use the rod on their children. Okay, so there's a difference. A parent can flog, or let's use the word now, flog a child, and it's okay. But when someone else does it, it becomes a problem because you don't know the emotional state of that person. Okay, there are instances where we recommend to the parents, make sure you flog this child. Okay, if that is what is the child deserves.
All right.
Okay, so like I said, there is discipline, there's punishment, there is discipline in school. That's why we say our policy stands. And for children in primary school, I tell you, if the primary school is strong and the primary school is solid, they won't grow into bullies into the secondary. No, it won't happen.
All
Now,
right.
when they get to secondary, there should be another method, which I know schools do. My daughter is in secondary school, and I can share with you what they do. Like the secondary school, we all know, you misbehave, you are going home. You are
All right.
going home. So you speak to your children, please don't do this, don't do this. Yeah,
All right. Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Juliet. We really had a great time having this conversation with you. We'll probably have a rematch some other time on this conversation.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
rest of the day. We have to come back into
You
the
too.
studio to deal with it psychologically. Thank you so much
Exactly.
also for
being
being a
with
part
us.
of it. I was hoping that you would ask her a few questions as well. Because, I mean, we've had this conversation about bullying, and it's such a big issue because these people grew up to become bullies in other systems. It happens from the school first. You leave that guy, becomes a bully. In fact, the person can even grow up to have an organization, build a whole conglomerate under his name, and now start enforcing that same behavior of bullying on the people that he employs to carry out the responsibility. So much more than, I would like to know what your most recommended disciplinary action for a child who is found bullying would be. Because honestly, I feel like I'm talking from a personal experience now. I feel like the major problem we experience these days is the act of proper discipline. And I'm not talking about the rod now. There are times when, as a child, you are deprived of certain things just so you will understand what it means to deprive a person of it. You see? So what other disciplinary measures exist?
Okay. In schools, the first thing is let the child, before bullying starts, you educate the children, the students of your, you educate them about the anti-bullying policies.
Okay.
Like she said, you sensitize them on that there are going to be dire consequences for anyone who goes against those policies that you have promulgated in the school system, within the school system. Another thing is you have to do in-service training of the educators.
Okay.
I tell people, as a teacher, as an educator, is a calling beyond, okay, I want to eke out a living, means of livelihood and all that. You have to make sure that your heart is there. And those children that are silent, those children that are very, they are not assertive, you know, you have to be on the lookout for them, because those are the ones that easily fall prey. You know, those are the ones bullies look out for. That, okay, I can exert dominance on this person. This person is, she won't talk, he won't say anything. You know, so that's another thing. Then you have to encourage bystander. When something happens, when bullying happens, people that are there, you need to call them and let them give a first-hand information, witness about what happened. And they should you should encourage them that nobody is going to call you a snitch, because we encourage the silence culture in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like you said, bullying takes place in all facets of the society. Religious, we know clergymen that will bully their congregation. That we know people in the offices, in marketplaces, in, you know, that would bully, like you said, in an organization that would do that and all that. So it's very important that you encourage students to talk. Then you can also assess children's understanding of what bullying is by providing them questionnaires.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, in the questionnaire, you ask certain questions. What do you understand as bullying? What do you think? Why do do you think bullying is prevalent in the school or wherever it is happening? You know, so that's you. Those are the rules, you know, that you can put in place. Yes.
So basically, we're encouraging children to talk and students to actually report this matter, so have an open mind with their parents as it is. But again, what should be like the first response, you know, from a parent when a child reports that he or she is being bullied in school?
Okay, now I'm going to talk about 3 things. The first is when bullying takes place, some people blame the bullied that is partly due to they blame them that it's partly due to your faults.
Okay.
Then number 2, they tell them that bullying makes you tough. We need to disabuse our children. It doesn't make you tough. Then in school they say, oh, it's just teasing. Teasing is fun. Teasing is not fun. I don't like it. Don't do it to me. So the first thing is you ask your child what happened. Okay. Make sure you get exactly what happened. Make sure that it's not the child that started. Now, I'm not advocating. I'm not condoning that alright behavior of bullying. But make sure you validate the emotions of the child. That, okay, how did you feel when this person what happened? Then who are the people that are there? You know, then take it up. Go to the school. You need to see the school authority and call witnesses, call the people involved. Your child has been bullied and the bully. And then they will now work with the school policies against the bullying. Okay. There should be consequences. If there are consequences, like you mentioned the other time that there is preferential treatment. Yes, in private schools. Even teachers give preferential treatments to students who are from affluent homes, probably because of what they get from the parents. And they will look the other way when the other child is being bullied. You know, so you talk and make sure you go to school. They know you're in school. They are aware that you have your child's backing all the time. So that kind of a parent, his or her child won't be bullied. Okay. I can assure you of that.
You did mention some of the effects, psychological effects that bullying has on the bullied as it is. I'm talking about victims right now. And you said depression is one of them.
Yes.
And some other persons might say traumatic experiences also comes with that, basically. So what kind of trauma support should be given to victims of bullying?
Number 1 is counseling.
Okay.
That's the first thing. You have to tell the person that this happened not because anything that you have done, it didn't happen because of what you have done.
Wow.
The person just decided to do it, and it has nothing to do with it. Has no bearing with who you are as a person. So that's basically it.
All right, counseling.
Counseling.
Okay.
Yes.
What for children that are being bullied?
For children that are being bullied.
Okay. Now let's mirror the video.
Okay.
Which is, we'll probably have the video played, which is the, of course, bane of this conversation today. What that had happened in that school. Now, when I saw that video, my issue is the fact that a lot of people came out to validate that, saying, you don't know this school. That's how the school is. So, oh, it's a normal behavior. If you went to that school and you made it alive, that means I've seen people in their 40s and 50s who went to that school and said the exact same thing, you know. And imagine something that existed 20, 30 years ago. And in 2026, we are seeing a replication of that in the same institution. What do you think are policies and framework that the government, particularly the Ministry of Education, need to put in place to ensure that things like this don't exist? These are the only ones that we have seen captured on camera. There are some that have gotten extreme. We have seen students being cut with blades by seniors in school. Students being given like harsh, inhumane punishment in schools. And that's why I seem a bit harsh when it comes to punishing these bullies, because they do a lot. They do too much. So at what point, or what policies do you think, or framework do you think the government can put in place to ensure that this is addressed?
Okay, first off, there's this girl I saw on social media, Ezzy Graham.
Yeah, I saw that video too.
I saw a narrative of what happened to her, how she even wanted to jump off the roof, emanating from the experiences she went through in that school due to bullying. Now, I'm not going to narrow it down to that school alone. It happens in all schools, in majority of schools, in Nigeria, abroad, everywhere. It happens. So it's not peculiar to Igbineje Education Center alone. Now, The dynamics vary. It might be more in this because the educators, the school authorities, they look the other way. Maybe, like I said, affluent homes, they don't want problems and all that. And they bury whatever happens, you know, they try to manage it to their own advantage. The first thing is there should be dire consequences. Then government should do more of correctional facilities for teenagers, for youngsters in school. It's not prison. It's not like Kirikiri or Alagbo or Kuje prison. Yes, but correctional facilities. There's this guy when I was young, when I was in secondary school, he was so unruly, you know, and all that abroad. So his parents sent him to his grandparents in Nigeria, in Ibadan. And there was a correctional facility then in Ibadan. They put him there. And if I mention the name of the guy now, he's in his early 50s, you would know him. And that's where he turned a new leaf. So there should be correctional facilities. Government should put that in place because bullying will always happen. You can't eradicate that totally. Yes, it can be minimized, it can be suppressed to an extent, but it will always happen because this, like I said, stems from home. Most of the time, it stems from home. And so many children, their parents don't have the time, and what they see their parents do, they replicate it in school. And children want, some children, especially peer pressure thing, you know, and all that, they want to belong, they want to be in the clique, they want to be known, they want to be popular. So they will do anything to belong to that clique, that happening woke clique.
Yeah.
So they will want to do that. So that's why I said it can't be totally eradicated in schools. Correctional facilities for youngsters, young children, yes.
Yeah,
Very important.
You've talked so much on some of the parents should do, but let's conclude on that as well. Because again, sometimes emotional intelligence is a thing. That lack of it also makes a lot of persons become bullies. How can parents build that emotional intelligence in their children so they don't become bullies?
Okay, so we need to inculcate in them how to regulate their emotions. The first thing, I was of the school of opinion that when your child throws tantrums, beat the child. But as I evolved as a parent, you know, I've been a parent for 20 years. As I evolved, I discovered that that's not the first thing to do. Sit the child down.
Okay.
If it's a public place, pull the child aside. How are you feeling? What is wrong with you right now? Can you name your emotions? Why are you angry? Let validate that emotions. Get to the root of it. The first thing is not to beat, because when you beat, you increase that tantrums tendencies, you know, that tantrum tendencies. So you ask the child what the child is going through. You name that emotions. You validate the emotions that, okay, this is what you are feeling right now. What can I do? How can I come in to help? For a child that understands, not a younger child, maybe from 7, 8 years, you know, and all that. So you have to do that with your child, not beating. We beat our children when they were much younger. They are older now, so there is nothing wrong. Even the Bible says, spare the rod, spare the child. So there is nothing wrong. But there is a place where you have to have one-on-one conversation. It gets to a stage that beating will not work anymore. So that is it. You have to validate. You have to ask questions why they are behaving that way. Okay. And we parents, we do too much in quotes. Your child says, I'm bored. The next thing, oh, take my phone. No, you don't do that.
All right.
So
thank you so much. We have Mrs. Aderemi Emmanuel-Oki. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We definitely have learned quite a number of things.
Thank you for having me.
All right, back to us in the studio. You see, the matter of this bullying, you know, when we talk about correcting the child with the rod, many times it often looks as though you're talking about beating the child. I remember, I have very vivid memory of things that happened while I was a child. And when I think about those things now, I know for a fact that these are things that have contributed to forming me, or to my formation, basically. Yeah. And it's not necessarily about beating the child. I've shared experiences with you where you are just deprived for a moment, not completely deprived, deprived for a moment. What matters to you the most, just so you are aware of the implication of what you have done. when we take out these things from, oh, the child will cry. If I don't do this, the child will cry. If I don't give the child this, the child will cry.
Yeah.
Nobody ever, as a matter of fact, as a child, if you didn't cry, they won't even bring you to this world.
Yeah.
You even have to cry first. And I'm being serious about it. Now, we over-validate the emotions of the child. And we take out the place of correcting the child when we need to. We have to understand that children, there is a particular time you can correct a child that the child will listen.
Yes.
When in the heat of that moment, it is not with anger, not with bitterness. In the heat of that moment, let the child see the implication of what they have done.
Of course.
But don't say, oh, because the child is going to cry or something, you over-validate those emotions. And then at the time when they are supposed to learn very key lessons, you have let that moment slip just because you are trying to validate it.
You know, and you've lost out on that opportunity to train them. I think we see so many woke kind of parenting now that you just, anything slides, you know, anything just goes.
Do you know what will happen to you if you break your TV because you are upset?
Where you know where we'll come from, basically. And it's quite crazy that we see this happen now as we get to see them, right? And it has actually degenerated the quality of children that we have now in our society, and many of them no longer get to think things through. You just see a person think about a thing and immediately they do whatever they need to do. They don't get to know, or they don't care how it makes the other person feels, right? But if there is a constant training, and again, another point, just to put it in a proper context, now we've also seen children just grow up in families. They're no longer being trained in their families, you know, because parents brings up the excuses that they are busy, they are working and trying to make ends meet. Once we understand,
and usually it happened in schools when the parents were not living up to that. It was happening in schools, but now the schools have also been deprived of that. So they don't get it at home. They don't get it in school.
You know, and so then you deprive the child of being trained, being disciplined. You just permit that character, and when they grow up with that particular character, it becomes a societal nuisance eventually. But I think the best time is nip it in the bud right now, train them, teach them, correct them now. Let them don't carry those habits as they grow.
All right, this is where we wrap up the conversation this morning on the Rapid Dawn. I will remind you that we're active across social media platforms on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Twitter, which is now X at Rapid TV. On YouTube, it is at Official Rapid TV, and www.rbnradiotv.com is our website, and it allows you to connect with us from anywhere in the world. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning. My name is Martha Alu.
And my name is Victor. Okay, we will see you tomorrow.